grab a coffee and join a laid-back conversation about SOLIDWORKS data management. There isn't going to be any great visuals on screen today, as this time we explore a more podcast-like setting. We had plenty of titles for this broadcast, but I think we landed on the right one by calling it Cad Coffee Break, talking about data management with Lennart Tinndahl. My name is Tim and I'm Senior Application Specialist with ATR Soft. I discovered CustomTools in 2010 and I have not looked back since then. Working with SOLIDWORKS and its ecosystem since 2008 and now focused on project work, automating the integration from CAD to ERP systems. Always looking for the easy and most automated solution because a great machinist is a lazy machinist. So today we have the pleasure of interviewing Lennart Tinndahl about his experience on data management. These are not best practices or guidelines, just everyday struggles and issues he and we run into often. These questions can also be answered by you. We really would like your interaction as well to learn how you see data management and especially in the context of CustomTools. When there are questions you can relate to or even have answers for, please write them in the chat box and we'll try to visit these at the end of the interview session. Webinar is recorded as always and will be published on YouTube later on. If you watch it here, then we'd still like your comments under this video to learn how you benefit from CustomTools. And if you are new to this and wonder what we are talking about, you can go and get a 30-day free full support trial version and learn on your own terms where CustomTools can help in your daily work. Let's go! Hi Lennart, thank you for joining this little session here. I'm sure a lot of users already know you as you have a strong presence on LinkedIn, making very nice content and tips there. But could you briefly introduce yourself, your role and the type of companies you typically support with SOLIDWORKS?
Of course. So I work as a SOLIDWORKS reseller and a consultant. My day-to-day job is all about working closely with engineering teams. Most companies I support are small to mid-sized industrial manufacturing companies, so machinery builders, engineering companies, product development teams and that kind of people. What they usually have in common is that they rely heavily on SOLIDWORKS for their core design work. And they are at that stage where efficiency and data quality really starts to matter. I'm in regular contact with designers, project leads and also managers, so I get to see both the technical challenges and the business impact behind them.
When you meet new customers, what are the most common challenges you see around file management and design data?
For the most part, the same patterns appear over and over. Inconsistent file naming is a big issue. Different designers using different conventions. We also have custom properties that are either incomplete, wrong, or filled out differently depending on who made the file. We're talking language maybe here. That usually leads to a lot of time wasted searching for information, or people not trusting the data they find. Many processes are very manual, and this is why they are prone to error. And there's often a lack of standardization across the team. It works when you are 2 or 3 designers, but as soon as the team grows, it becomes very hard to scale.
At what point do customers usually realize that standard SOLIDWORKS alone is not enough?
Well, that realization usually comes quite naturally. As projects get more complex, or when multiple designers start working on the same assemblies and the same data, the cracks begin to show. Often it's when mistakes start to affect delivery dates, or when management suddenly asks for better traceability, reporting or consistency. And very often it is driven by downstream needs, ERP systems, PDM, purchasing, manufacturing, where reliable data suddenly becomes very critical. That's when customers realize they need more structure and more automation, and not just good intentions.
Let's make that a bit more concrete. What typically goes wrong when file naming, file properties and project structure are left entirely up to users?
So the short answer is everyone does it differently. File names follow personal habits instead of company rules. Properties They might be partially filled out or filled out with slightly different wording. Folder structures vary from project to project. It makes reuse risky, because you are never quite sure what you're reusing, and standards may exist on paper, but they're simply not followed in practice. Not because people don't want to, but because it's too easy to forget or if they interpret them differently.
Right. And how do these issues impact collaboration, revisions, and delivery times?
Well, it creates friction everywhere. You get more rework because someone used an outdated or wrong revision. Validation and checking takes a lot longer because people don't trust the data. That leads to delays, additional meetings, and some frustration inside the team. Over time, this confidence in release data goes down, and that is dangerous. Once people don't trust the system, they start to create their own workarounds, and that will just amplify the problem.
In companies without automation, what kind of errors do you see most often?
Wrong or missing custom properties is probably number one. Then drawings that don't match the model anymore because something has changed but not updated. Files that have been saved in a wrong location, that's another classic, as well as duplicate part numbers. And very often manual updates are simply forgotten. None of these are big mistakes by any means, but together they add up and to a lot of wasted time.
So when does CustomTools usually enter the conversation with a customer?
For the most part, it's when the customer starts complaining about repetitive tasks or when enforcing standards become a real challenge. Sometimes it's after quality issues appear or during discussions about optimizing or scaling. It can also come up before or alongside a PDM project, because at that point the customer is already thinking about the structure and the data quality, so automation begins to make a lot of sense for them. For us, CustomTools is actually part of the foundation rather than something we introduce later on as a solution to problems. For new customers, it's typically included very early on, so they have a tool available from day one, even if they don't use all of its capabilities immediately. The early exposure is of course important, because it sets the mindset around standards and automation right from the start. Customers know the tool is there, they understand what they can do with it, and they can start using it step by step as the process matures. For existing customers, it's more about frequent reminders and revisiting the topic. As the organization grows and the challenge change, CustomTools often becomes newly relevant. In many cases, customers already have it available, they just haven't connected the dots yet. When we bring it back into the conversation, it is often followed by a bit of, "Oh, this makes sense" moment.
How do you explain CustomTools to a customer in simple terms?
For the most part, I describe it as an automation layer on top of SOLIDWORKS. It helps designers do the right thing automatically. Instead of relying on memory, training, and discipline, CustomTools enforces company rules in the background. It reduces manual actions and human errors, and it also improves consistency, and it makes the data more reliable without making SOLIDWORKS harder to use.
What was your own aha moment when you first saw CustomTools in action?
For me, the first real moment was seeing standards applied automatically and understanding just how much time it actually saves in practice. Suddenly, things that used to rely on discipline and memory was just taken care of by the system. What also stood out very quickly was how fast the values become visible. People start using it, errors drop, and processes become cleaner almost immediately. And one of the biggest surprises for me was realizing that designers enjoy using it. It doesn't get in their way, it helps them. You can literally watch the error rates go down and confidence in the data go up in a very short time.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that. And I'll even add something personal here. For me, it was the ease of configuration and how fluently it fits into the design process. I model a part file, then I go to properties, I fill out the metadata, and I press OK. And it just takes care of the whole save process for me. That's incredibly powerful. And then obviously Excel export with preview. That was another moment where it just clicked. You instantly see the value, and maybe most importantly, designers actually like using it, which is not something we can say about every tool.
Exactly. And that really is the key point. When a tool supports the way designers already work, instead of forcing a new behavior, adoption happens naturally. Custom Tools doesn't feel like an extra system that you have to manage. It just feels like a natural extension of SOLIDWORKS. And that is why those aha moments happen so early, because the benefits are tangible, practical, and experienced directly in the day-to-day work.
From what you see, what are the first processes customers typically automate with custom tools?
So, for the most part, they start with the basics, file naming and numbering, property creations, and other things that can help update the drawing title block automatically. Project folder creation is another common one, as well as batch operation on existing data. These are all areas where the customer gets quick wins and immediate relief.
Which capabilities are bringing the fastest return on investment for engineering teams?
Property consistency is a big one. You remove so many manual steps. Naming and numbering rules also pays off very quickly because they eliminate mistakes early. Batch updates, corrections are another huge time saver, especially for legacy data. And anything related to repetitive drawing tasks or template-based processes usually shows return of investments almost immediately.
A concern we sometimes hear is that standards slow designers down. How does Custom Tools enforce standards without doing that?
That's actually where Custom Tools shines. The rules are embedded directly into everyday actions, so designers don't have to think about them. There's no need to remember complex guidelines or checklists. Automation removes decision fatigue and manual checking becomes largely unnecessary. Designers can focus on designing, not on administration.
Many customers are already using SOLIDWORKS PDM. Where does Custom Tools add value on top of PDM?
Custom Tools helps by preparing clean data before it even enters the vault. That alone reduces a lot of the complexity inside PDM. It also automates tasks outside a strict PDM workflow, which improves the overall user experience and accelerates adoption. For me, Custom Tools makes PDM easier to use, especially for everyday users.
How does that affect user adoption?
Users have fewer manual steps to follow, and they get a clear guidance through automated rules. That means less training is needed, and people are less afraid of making mistakes. As a result, user behavior becomes more consistent, and that's exactly what you want in a PDM environment.
Have you seen concrete examples where Custom Tools reduced errors or admin work inside of PDM?
Yeah, correct properties before check-in is a big one. Fewer rejected files, less manual correction by admins, change processes becomes faster. Bill of materials and metadata are cleaner, and overall, the administrative load inside PDM goes down.
Let's zoom out a bit. And this might be very individual, but from a management perspective, what changes after Custom Tools is deployed?
Management usually gets better visibility into design data, and project outcomes becomes way more predictable. There's a higher confidence in release files, less dependency on few key individuals, and onboarding on new designers becomes much easier. That is a huge deal for growing companies.
Do you have any insights on how better data quality would affect downstream processes like ERP, purchasing, and manufacturing?
Well, the impact is huge. Bill of material data becomes more reliable. Fewer corrections are needed to downstream, and ERP integration works much more smoothly. Coordination between departments improves, and manual data re-entry is reduced. And that's where engineering efficiency really turns into business value.
Have you seen cases where Custom Tools enable growth without adding engineering headcount?
Yes, on multiple occasions. Designers become more productive. Less time is spent on administrative tasks and fewer errors is needed to be fixed later in the process. That means the same team can take on more projects as the company grows without burning people out. And now, that doesn't mean that custom tools take your job away. Quite the opposite. It helps employees stay engaged and focus on real engineering work. When companies decide to grow the engineering team, it's often because custom tools have helped them improve data quality and overall workflow. With better design data and more reliable downstream information, the entire chain works more smoothly, from engineering all the way through manufacturing and sales. As we often hear from customers, we simply trust our process more, and that trust makes it easier to win and deliver new projects.
Why do you, as a SOLIDWORKS reseller, actively recommend custom tools?
Because it delivers real, measurable value. It's quick to demonstrate, easy to understand, and it complements SOLIDWORKS perfectly. It improves customer satisfaction, reduces frustration, and strengthens long-term relationships, which is important for us as a reseller.
And just how does custom tools fit into your overall customer success strategy?
It is part of a continuous improvement approach. It supports long-term adoption of SOLIDWORKS, reduces support and firefighting, positions us as trusted advisors rather than just a software supplier. It creates value over time for both the customer and for us.
If a company is struggling with data today, what would be your first recommendation?
Start by identifying the repetitive task. Standardize naming and properties. Make sure you automate the basics. Then you can add a layer of complexity if you want to. Focus on the quick wins and involve the users early. That is critical for success.
What would you say to a customer who thinks automation is too complex to start with?
Start small and simple. For the most part, it requires no coding at all, and the results are visible very quickly. It's actually all about a gradual improvement, not a big change, and the customer will be well supported by both the reseller and the publisher.
Lastly, if people attending this webinar should take away just one message, what should that be?
Good data doesn't happen by chance. Standards only work when they're embedded directly into the tools that people use every day. Automation improves quality without slowing teams down, and even small improvements can lead to big long-term gains.
And to add to that bigger picture, CAD data today is not just a graphical representation of a component, it carries value throughout the entire chain. From geometry used for the stress testing and to CAM programming and manufacturing, and all the way through to downstream processes. A modern CAD file is much more than just geometry. Most companies now rely heavily on high quality metadata and standardized workflows to deliver better products faster and with more confidence. With that, I'd like to thank you, Lennart, for joining us for this Cad Coffee Talk, and thanks as well to PLM Group for letting us borrow your colleague today. And thank you to everyone who attended this session. Today's format was a little different from our previous webinars, and we truly hope you enjoyed the content as much as we enjoyed putting it together. Remember to go to customtools.info, where you can see the news, upcoming webinars, request a free trial, and contact us directly. The next webinar will be in August on the 13th, same time as today, with the title called Future Trends in CAD and PLM. Your host is Product Director Tero Salonen. Until then, have a great summer.